Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Bodacious Rant with Bern and Rye. Hope everybody's having a great week and weekend. We are almost done with January of 2023 already. And it is crazy. Like, every year it feels like it gets just faster and faster, and that just makes me ask, are we wasting life?
The answer is always yes.
Yeah, pretty much.
In some capacity.
I mean, at least if we're wasting life, we're going to waste it on, of course, you guys guessed it, The Last of Us, because episode 3 just dropped. And wow. I don't want to talk about it too much right now before the spoilers, because I'm just going to start just getting emotional. I think this is the best one yet so far. Like, first one was great. Second one was good, not as... It was still great, don't get me wrong. I think the first one was great.
They're both great, yeah.
Yeah.
In my opinion,
both great. Yeah, no, they're both solid. Especially because we got to finally see Clicker's last one. But this one was a big... It was kind of like a very fun part of the game. This is one that a lot of people would talk about. Was meeting the survivalist, a.k.a. Doomsday Prepper, Bill, where Joel and Ellie kind of get on their journey. And it's definitely... I wouldn't say drastically, but it kind of is. Like, they definitely made some changes, like way more changes with this part of the story than in the video game, but honestly it worked for me. I was going to this and expecting more. Like, I was expecting something different, and I'm happy with the end result. What did you think, Bern?
Yeah, man. Like you mentioned, this is a pretty big departure, I think, from the events in the game. If this did happen in the game, we didn't see like pretty much any of it. Yeah. So this could very well have happened in the background as we're playing through the game, and that's a totally separate thing. But in regards to this episode of TV, this was incredible. I was not prepared. Like you mentioned, I was not emotionally prepared for this episode. Just what a incredible hour of television. Like, once this ended, I was just like, man, that might have been like one of the best episodes of TV I've seen at least in the last few years. I mean, I don't have like a list of like my favorite episodes of TV of all time, but if I were to make one, I would imagine this would be up there for sure, because this was so well done. I think it goes to show that the creators of the show are not just resting on the laurels of the story of the game. Like, they can easily adapt that. It's an incredible story, and it's so far has translated so well. But this just shows that they're just talented, and they've put together this episode, and it not being really like a straight adaptation of the game's material. It just showed that they know what they're doing, and this was great. I mean, I can't really say anything more about it without getting into it too much. But man, what an episode, man.
Yeah, definitely. These writers know how to adapt the source material very well, where they're tweaking certain stuff, like, and almost completely changing it, because this was still pretty like along the lines of the game for the most part. It was just the way it happened was very different. So. But I say let's get into spoilers. So before we do that, guys, this is definitely if you haven't played the game, not watched the show, come on back when you've done either. Maybe stick with the show, because we're talking about the show. And please do not forget to give us a like. Click the little bell to ring the bell, so that way you can stay up to date with notifications when we drop. And of course, just subscribe. We do appreciate the support, guys, and let's keep diving into this. This is definitely one of the best shows in recent years, so I'm glad we're watching this one. But yeah, like I said, I think Nick Offerman was the perfect choice for Bill, because I was kind of like looking at I guess if I had to imagine somebody that Nick Offerman was kind of the dude for it. And originally I thought, okay, we're gonna get we're gonna get crazy action like in the game with all the booby traps and the clickers and all that stuff. But man, them changing it to a love story was like, holy shit, that's it took me by surprise, because I remember again, Bernie, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I know we were kind of talking about it before, but in the video game, I don't it's been so long since I played through the story completely. I don't remember them referencing like a romantic connection between Bill and Frank. I thought it was more of just like they were kind of like buddies who are surviving in this town together, and one of them died, so he's kind of bitter about it because he's just lost his friend. That was the vibe I got. I mean, do you remember if there was anything in the game like that, or since you played it recently, maybe you want to enlighten everybody?
Yeah, so I'll just basically like lay it out for everybody who hasn't played the game, or maybe like you just doesn't remember. It's been such a long time since you played it, but yeah, there was definitely it was a lot more subtle. I'll say that for sure because I mean, based on the fact that we never see Frank in the game at all. I mean, we do see his dead corpse. You know, again, spoiler for the game, but you know, like it does not play out the same way at all as it does here in this episode. But yeah, we only happen upon his corpse, and Bill makes mention that you know Frank was his partner. So there's a little like subtle hint there of like of a potential relationship, more so in Frank's suicide note because it is a suicide note that they find in the game and there fleshes out a little bit more that Frank and Bill had a relationship. Frank was unhappy, wanted to leave, and unfortunately got bitten and decided to end his life before he turned into one of the monsters that we see in the game and in the show. So yeah, there's that, and then there's a funny scene that I don't want to reference because it could potentially happen next week's episode, but it again furthers that point that there is a relationship between Bill and Frank, or there was a relationship between Bill and Frank. So yeah, very much a lot more subtle that we don't actually see it because again we don't see Frank, so it's a lot more laid out here for sure.
Yeah, it's funny because like even 10 years ago, a lot of game like there were plenty of games that were still kind of hesitant to like do the whole LGBTQ route with some characters and stuff. So that was apparent with the subtle story. I mean, I have to replay the game. I finally got the remastered edition, like the next gen update. So I want to play through that one more time just because this show's really got me excited to play it again. But yeah, like I said, I don't remember any. I kind of I saw the thing you're talking about, the joke. Maybe we'll reference it in the next episode, so I don't want to say it. I saw it on YouTube and I was like, huh, like I don't remember that at all. Like I said, a lot of it's just a blur. So I did like the like Joel and Ellie this episode. Joel's very bitter about Tess, like that they fleshed out that they were more of a relationship, like partners throughout the apocalypse, essentially the pandemic. So I like that they're going through, like they have to stop at this gas station because he stashed some stuff there, and that scene where Ellie is looking like kind of like playing around with that clicker, not playing around with it, but just like literally poking at it and just I guess building up that hatred towards the whole situation, because she kind of grew close to Tess, and I thought it was a very interesting scene, just the up close with that clicker that's kind of starting to evolve into one, and just seeing Bella Ramsey really translate her just quiet anger into that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I believe that in between, in between the runner infected and clicker infected, I think they're called stalkers, if I remember correctly. Like they're that, like you mentioned, like they're in the process of getting more fungal and like sprouting, basically, for a lack of a better term. But yeah, that was an interesting scene because they're sort of doing something a little bit different with Ellie's characterization, at least as it compares to where she is in the first game. Here it seems like they're adding a little bit more of like a mean streak. Like she's a little bit more intense, a little bit more, I guess like vindictive. Like sort of my read on that scene was sort of like, like she's like getting back at it for what happened to Tess almost because there was that conversation that her and Joel have prior to that scene where she's telling Joel that no, like don't blame me for Tess's death, when you can kind of get a sense that she does have a little bit of that survivor guilt. At least it was very apparent from the final shot of last week's episode where she's by herself with the explosion in the background. Like you can tell that she just sort of blame herself for Tess's death. So this, I think, was a little bit of a way to sort of like get back at the cordyceps. At least that was my personal read on it. Also, just her having that little bit of a mean streak with this scene here, and then the scene at the end of the first episode where she's watching Joel beat that guy to death.
Yeah, it's definitely a combination of all those things. Like, I mean, I don't want to spoil it or anything, so I'm not going to say too much. But what did you think about the whole Mass Graves situation? Out of curiosity, like, how did that scene grab?
Dude, that was rough. I mean, it's a nice juxtaposition because this world is so bleak and we're reminded of it, and it sort of sets you up for the story to come in the next few minutes. But yeah, that whole idea that Fedra was rounding up people to bring into quarantine zones, and when they ran out of room, they would just execute them. that's super messed up. And yeah, like it served as a really good transition from the grave to us seeing it actually go down. But yeah, the world of The Last of Us is super bleak, and this was a reminder of, like, when this happened, like it was really just it was a messed up situation, and only like a few types of people can survive, and Bill, being the person he is, it was one of them for sure. But yeah, that transition there was devastating, to say the least.
Yeah, exactly, dude. I thought that was because I don't remember in the game them talking about what necessarily happened with that stuff. It was more like people who survived went to the QZs and all that stuff. But I thought that was a really neat episode because I hate to say it, I could see that happening, given I'm a little bit of a pessimistic person. But I like that Joel was like, these are for the people that if they didn't have room for the QZ, this is what happens. Like, they were infected, and he's like, no, not all. Maybe not all of them though. And it was just like, man, the government really it actually played out for this episode a little bit better, just because when we do meet Bill and he's all excited that everybody's gone. I loved his little bunker and all his stuff, like him pulling the truck and the boat, getting all the supplies from the town and just setting it up. I was like, God, this is so cool to see how he kind of did it. It was definitely a different town, because I remember the other one was more like I I guess, for lack of a better word, suburban, where I had the more like back, because you're traveling through the backyards in the game, where this one was just more of a clear cut, like kind of regular town with some houses and stuff. So not a lot of like hills or anything to it, just more flat. But I just liked his little defenses, and we got to see him really be resourceful with everything. The part that got me laughing was when he's eating his meal. He sees the camera of the one, like one of the newly infected, like becoming a clicker, is walking through. He's like, "Go ahead for that tripwire," and his shotgun's into the head. He's like, "Never gets old." That's why I love Nick Offerman for this, man. He fleshed that guy out so well.
Yeah, unlike you, initially I was a little bit hesitant about the casting. Not that Nick Offerman isn't good. I mean, he's great. But I mean, like me, like a lot of other people, mainly know him from Parks and Recs. So that's more of like a comedic role. So I was like, how am I going to be able to take him seriously without like thinking about like Ron Swanson? But then thinking about it a little bit more, and then seeing it play out in this episode, it is kind of like Ron Swanson.
Oh, it's very much Ron. If he just completely gave up hope on humanity.
Yeah, like if the world did collapse, like he would be ready for it.
This is just the take. This is like the take the comedic part of Ron Swanson. This is what you get, essentially.
But yeah, like this was definitely like he's been waiting for this moment. He's prepared. So it's like that paranoia sort of like it turned out like it paid off for him, and he was ready to go. And yeah, him making that whole little town basically self-sufficient was really cool to see. Like you're kind of like sad about it, because you're like, oh man, like there's no way to live, buddy. But he's in his element, and he's able to do it for, I think, like 4 years, right? There's like a little bit of a time jump in between this and when we meet Frank.
Yeah, I'm gonna flip it. I'm like, dude, he's living the life right now. Given again, yes, it's not healthy for that, but at the same time, I was just thinking like, holy shit, this proves that they were right. Not in a great way, but it's like it worked for the show, and the rest of it, how Frank literally fell into his life with a little trap. I thought that was hilarious too. Man, it was just so good. Again, I thought they were gonna be like best friends, like brothers and stuff, but then after they had dinner and they're playing the piano, the Linda Ronstadt song, and it was like when he's like, "There's no girls," like, oh buddy. But so I didn't expect, like, it's like, not that I'm like offended by it or anything, it just took me by surprise because I didn't know they were going that route. But after seeing them like go over the years and see, I was like, oh man, this is it's such a universal love story with this, like just two people magically finding each other in like a pandemic and making the best of it. I thought it was gonna go along the game route where like Frank busts out of the house. He's like, "Of course you would never let me. Don't you dare say management resource again," because he wants to like pay. He wants to make the town a little bit nicer. And why wouldn't you? It's basically their not just their house, but it's the whole community. And he's like, "We're gonna have friends over." He's like, "There will not be friends because there are no friends for us, Frank." But then lo and behold, that's how we find out that Tess and Joel meet them. Because in the game, even then, I don't think we really know how they met. We just kind of assumed because Joel was like a smuggler that Bill was kind of like a supply line, or he was along one of the routes. So I like that. Frank and Tess were the ones playing like being very cordial with each other, like, oh my god, let me show you something in the house. I gotta do this. And Bill just keeps aiming the gun at Joel, like, Frank, damn it. Oh man, I love their interactions. That whole little like hangout scene was great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like everything from the meet cute to like them being like established in a relationship, for years. It was so well done. One of the things I definitely want to like call attention to was I mean, Nick Offerman just absolutely killed it in that like that dinner scene. Basically, from the point he invites Frank into his home, like just the way he sort of like turtle shells. Like I don't know if you noticed it in his
performance. Oh yeah, he was like
he gets very like insular, and it's. And like he played off so well. Like, look, I'm not a homosexual. I'm not a gay person. I don't know what it feels like to like like have to come out to someone or be like a little bit unsure of like like letting your like inner intentions out when you don't know like if the other person is the same way. But the way he played it off there, and the way that like Frank sort of like guides him in that like that relationship, just that brief scene alone, it was so well done. I was like, man, it felt like real. It felt honest, and I felt like you don't get that a lot from a lot of like portrayals in a lot of media and stuff. So to have that scene play out was so great. And then that smash cut to like 3 years later, and they're already like having like an old people couple, like him like arguing like you're like said 9/11 was an inside job, and the government are Nazis. The government are all Nazis. Well, yeah, now it's like
it's it was like, no, so Frank, good. They kind of, it's like, Frank, I think Bill maybe, let's let Bill be right about the rest of it, because we kind of saw what happened. But no, I did notice that, like, the whole, like, he's kind of afraid to be himself, because, yeah, like, again, even, like, 20 years ago, that wasn't, it wasn't truly accepted for people to, like, come out and say, like, oh, I'm gay, or, and I don't think you've ever had that, being kind of, like, a very antisocial person. He's never found someone to even experiment with. But he did say when they were gonna do it, like, oh, well, there was a girl, but it's like, oh, okay, like, don't worry, dude. And I really like the guy who played Frank. He did it so well. And
Murray Bartlett killed it so
dude,
good.
They both did, man. And like, I know you were, and the hesitancy with the whole Nick Offerman being casted, I totally get, because Parks and Rec is so much more comedic. But it's one of those things, like, if someone can nail the comedy really well, then it's possible they can be like some of the best dramatic actors too, like Michael Keaton, with Batman. I forgot who else. I can't really think off the top of my head, but I mean, that's just one example that comes to mind.
Yeah, like, I mean, like, yeah, they definitely, like, one of the things that the creator of the show, Craig Mazin, called out was to your point, that oh man, what's his name? Vince Gilligan, the creator of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, like his sort of like casting inspiration with Walter White.
Oh, that's right.
Bryan
Cranston.
Bryan Cranston. Where he said one. Like, maybe let's go for the comedy actor, because there's something to comedy. Obviously, there's this deeper like level underneath that comedy. That actors, in particular comedic actors, can tap into, and that's why we see a lot of them translate so well from comedy to drama. So seeing it in the show and then listening to that podcast after, which I'll plug again, everybody, if you're loving the show, definitely go check that out. But yeah, like, absolutely right. Yeah, like his comedic sensibilities in Parks and Recs, it might be like a little bit like weird for people coming in, like, not like really knowing like what this character is like. But the way it played out in the show was so great. And Murray Bartlett as Frank, such an incredible scene partner. Like, their dynamic from the get-go was amazing. And yeah, it was so well done.
They're just two bears living in their own community, man. And it worked, just those righteous beards, the hair. Like, I was like, man, those hair and makeup people, they need an award for just that alone, because they looked awesome with that stuff. But
oh, but yeah, to your point about that dinner scene, it was so cool seeing like the sort of like different roles that they play, like very much Frank and Joel are the standoffish, they're afraid to open up to people, but like Frank and Tess are just like best, like fast friends, like they're the ones getting like the ball rolling on like their relationships and stuff, and we've definitely seen that with Tess and Joel in the last 2 episodes, where she's the one taking the lead on things and he's kind of like, I don't know, unsure, and like very reserved, but yeah, just to see that sort of like relationship like play out with these two guys, it was so good.
It's like
Just
let the social partners be social, and the other ones just kind of glare
mhm.
at each other and just deal with each other. And he's like, you can get
Yeah,
that. Like I like when they're talking. He's like, well, we can trade, and you can get that gun on my fucking face. He's just fine. Like he just kind of just all right, holsters it, and
yeah.
you know
Like we don't
Joel.
have to be friends, but this relationship can be mutually beneficial. I can get these, like reels of, like I
Aluminum
forgot what
stuff.
aluminum. Yeah, like I could get this stuff for you. Like we don't have to like each other, but let's work together, basically.
Yeah, and like I said, I like that they made that connection. So it's like, oh, that actually makes it a little bit better that Tess would just shout out Bill and Frank. So I like that one. And then the rest of it, how Joel predicted the Raiders would come, and he's defending it, no problem. I love the little flamethrowers he had for those guys outside the fence. It's like, cause how they're like sparking up. It's like, what the hell is that? And then just, oh shit, there's fire. He's on fire. Um, I thought that was gonna be like a different term where like, oh, Bill's the one who died and Frank is gonna live. I was like, that's an interesting one. But then flash forward years later, it's like Frank has cancer or something along the lines of that because he's like, oh well, they couldn't find a cure years ago, so what makes the difference? And Bill, they're like how they got so old. I was like, man, Bill was not this old in the game. At that point, I'm like, oh, this is another deviation they're making. Like they're old as shit. There's no way Bill can help out Joel and Ellie in his state. And it was just so heartbreaking. That part that got me the most was when Frank is like, this is my last day. Like I'm not living like this anymore. Like let's have a good day. Let's go to the boutique. We'll get some suits. We'll get married. Have a good dinner, and you're gonna crush up all my meds and just put them in the wine. Like essentially, like just let me OD or something in peace, just to get it over with. And man, I was just like, just again, I was watching with my family, so I was trying to hold it back, but I was just like, God damn, just the dam is breaking. And it was just so well done. Again, a universal like love story that you could see this being done with a man and woman, two women. It didn't really matter to me. It was just so great. Again, I was expecting a lot of action because like in the mission in the game, you're dodging clickers, people come and you're having a shootout a little bit. And it's like, no, we just got a very good story with people that probably had the best life throughout the pandemic in the Last of Us universe, both the game and the show. And then that dinner scene where he gives him the wine, and then Bill's like, well, you were my purpose. Like I have no reason to keep going. So, and Frank's just like, I like Frank's line of where he said, I should be upset, but I think this is like basically this is like a perfect night for us. Oh man, it was just like I said. Did you get that emotional at all with this, or were you kind of just like, yeah, cheers, guys?
I mean, instead of dodging clickers and infected, it was just try to dodge like tears, but unsuccessful, man. Like everything from that time jump after it looks like Bill died, but it was definitely a fake out. To it being Frank, he has like a degenerative disease of some kind that they don't really go into in the show, but you get the idea that his health has really drastically decreased, and now that he's on his last legs. So yeah, once that scene of him laying out his last wishes for his final day, oh man, it broke me, dude. Again, I was not ready for this because again, was not prepared by the game. It didn't happen at all, so it was coming into this like completely unaware, and yeah, from that point on, it was just waterworks, dude. Like I was watching it alone in my room, and if anyone had opened the door, they just would have seen me just there, like just a complete mess in my.
Someone's just like, hey, Bernie,
Get out!
just okay.
Yeah. Basically that's what it been like. But yeah, such a beautiful like tragic moment, like he knows he's not long for this world, and he wants to go out on his own terms, and he's asking, the man that he loves to grant him that wish, and it just the way it played out was so beautifully, everything from the cinematography to the song they used, it was such a like a great last moment, and that detail of like him serving like the as the last meal, the first one they ever had, like the way he presents it, the meat and the little turn of the plate, and the whole wine thing was just like their first day and their last day are like basically like a forever embedded, with them, and that's what they get to go out on. And yeah, that twist of him saying like, I'm going with you, basically, like you were my purpose. It was like, man, what way
What a
to like
great line.
twist the knife and just like get me like again. But yeah, it's such a beautiful line, and for them to go out, like you said, on their own terms, and possibly a way that's like the most poetic way that you could go out in this world that we've seen is so tragic. And like, again, the mass grave in the beginning of the episode, like your life can be taken from you like at any moment. To have like ownership and agency over that, and to go out with the person you love is like, it's something that we wish for now, but it seems like a far off wish like you can have in this universe. And the fact that they got to do that together was just, it was beautiful.
Like I said, man, they made it out better than any character in the game or the movie or the show so far. So that's a lot to say, and very well done. And then when Joel and Ellie roll up on him, they find Bill's note to Joel, where it's kind of like the note from the game a little bit if you found it. And it's basically like, I never liked you, Joel, but I respect you and I do trust you. Like, here's my stuff, everything's yours. Like, and he thought Tess was still alive. But I think they decided to die. Like, I think maybe like a day or two before, because like the food has like fresh flies all over it. Like everything's a little dusty. So it's like it just recently happened. And Joel got like they kind of got the idea like, oh shit, they're just dead now. And just them stocking up, I was like, I loved Bill's bunker because I was like, oh my god, there's so much good shit in here. Ellie finally got her gun from like the video game, and she looks exactly with the red shirt and the long sleeves. Like, that's Ellie's look right there. That's awesome.
I love we got it. That.
Yeah, we got all that. She's like, I'm gonna shower. Like, they have hot water here. Which is honestly like Frank said in the beginning, like, oh my god, this is amazing. Can I have a few more minutes? It's like, yeah, sure, go ahead. Like, Bill's like, yeah, go ahead. Like, why not? It's not like he's paying for it anymore. Mm-hmm. And the other part that got me was just that final shot of them getting in the truck after they come to the agreement of like, listen, we're gonna go find my brother. He probably knows some fireflies to get you there, and that's it. But you do what I say. Don't talk about Tess. Let's keep our shit. Like, he's kind of opening up by not wanting to open up with her. So it was like, okay, Joel, this is just the beginning. Why don't you find out? Let's wait till the end of the season, see if you feel the same.
Yeah. He's at this point he's fully embraced the mission. At least, like, whereas before, this was against his will. Now he's like laying it down, like, this is what we're gonna do. Like, I'm on board now. Like, at least getting her as far as Tommy, to Tommy, and figuring out where the fireflies are. Whatever happens after that point, that we don't know, but he's willing to get her there at least. And yeah, like it's a little bit of based off of that, that final like letter and like him reading it, like, what Bill says about them being protectors, that they're meant to protect the people that they love, and he's lost everyone that he's loved. he lost Sarah, and then he just recently lost Tess. So there's no one at this point for him to protect. I guess you can argue Tommy, but it seems like Tommy's like his own person. He's pretty self-sufficient. Of course, he's worried about him, and that's sort of the reason that he wants to go in the first place. But there isn't really anyone that needs his protection now except for Ellie. So it definitely informs that character there. So yeah, that was really good.
Again, it's just planting the seeds for them to it's just for the future. I don't want to spoil. I better not spoil anymore for people who haven't played the game or are just watching this. So, but that last shot where they're just driving in the truck with their supplies, they find the tape, the Linda Ronstadt tape, and even Joel's like, "Oh, you don't know who that is?" And she's like, "No." It's like, well, yeah, Joel, she's a kid. I don't think she's experiencing music as you are. And I just love that last shot of them playing the song and it just going into the windowsill of their bedroom, because he said, no, you don't open the room. Like, you'll probably, depending how you find us, it's going to be a thing. Like, you don't want to see what you're going to see. Mm-hmm. So it was just like, it was very much like, I know you told me, like, it was basically like watching Up. And I think that's why I like this episode so much, because it was almost like it was a movie of its own, like an hour-long movie of this story about a survivalist and this guy who fell into his life and made him become human, essentially. So just so well done, and I can't wait for the next week's episode, dude. It's such a great show so far.
Yeah, completely well done. That I love that it showed the difference between survival and living. For a long time, Bill was just surviving, and once he met Frank, then he began to live. And Joel, all he's been doing for the last 20 years has been surviving. So hopefully, that this serves, unlike the game where Bill was very much a cautionary tale for Joel's character of what he could end up becoming if he doesn't open up. This shows that there is some hope, for people like them. So that was an incredible thing that they did within this episode. And as much as it was a deviation from what we've seen in the game, I love that the end of this episode was very much giving the game players what they wanted. Ellie and her iconic gun, it being Bill's, I thought was great.
Yeah.
Their shirts, like you mentioned, their looks straight out of the game. And them getting in the truck and leaving and stuff. So and that line of dialogue too is stripped right from the game, where he's laying out these are the 3 rules that you need to follow. So again, it's such a great deviation from it, giving us something completely new and absolutely nailing it. And then at the end of it, giving game fans a little bit of what they want, and what they're looking for. So overall, like I said, an incredible hour of TV, and one that I did not expect at all coming into this.
Not at all. But everybody, what did you guys think of this episode? Were you bawling your eyes out like myself and Burn, or holding them back, or are you kind of like, I want to see more stuff? Like, are you trying to find more horror? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to find out. But again, I think we're gonna expect a lot more heavy moments and a lot more action and violence coming along. So just be preparing yourselves, guys. The show is great. The video game is great. So until next time, guys, we got this coming up. Movies are finally starting to come out. We're kind of getting there. We're getting closer, especially to Ant-Man on February 17th. So until next time, guys, as always, stay bodacious and keep on ranting for the both of us.
Absolutely, everybody. Be good, be safe, and as always, we'll catch y'all on the next one.